I knew karma was real the moment the new department manager walked into our Monday morning meeting, and it was him. Steven. The same Steven who used to slam my locker shut while I was still grabbing my books. The same Steven who once called me a slur loud enough for the entire cafeteria to hear. The same Steven who made my senior year of high school feel like a survival course. And now he was standing at the front of the conference room in a fitted navy suit, looking older, broader, calmer, and completely in charge. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Clark. I'll be overseeing this branch moving forward. His voice was deeper than I remembered, smoother, controlled. I felt like I was 17 again. I hadn't seen him in almost 8 years. After graduation, I left for college in another state. New city, new people, new life. I came out fully during sophomore year. Cut my hair differently. Started dressing how I wanted. Built confidence brick by brick. I thought I'd buried that version of myself, the skinny, anxious kid who avoided eye contact in hallways. But the second Steven's eyes scanned the room and paused on me, something old and sharp twisted in my stomach. Recognition. It flickered across his face for half a second. Paul. Hearing my name in his voice again almost knocked the air out of me. A few coworkers turned to look at me. I cleared my throat. Yeah. Hi. God. I hated that my voice sounded tight. Steven's lips parted slightly like he hadn't expected to actually know someone here. Then he nodded once. Professional. Small world. That was it. No smirk. No cruel grin. No under-the-breath comment. Just calm. The rest of the meeting blurred. I heard words like restructuring and performance metrics, but my brain kept replaying memories I didn't want. The day he cornered me in the locker room after someone spread rumors that I was gay. The time he shoved my backpack into a toilet. The way he used to look at me, like I was something beneath him. When the meeting ended, people lined up to introduce themselves. I stayed seated longer than necessary, pretending to check emails on my phone. I considered slipping out quietly. Paul. His voice was closer now. I looked up. He was standing right in front of me. Up close, he looked different. Older, obviously. Broader shoulders. Light stubble along his jaw. There were faint lines near his eyes that hadn't been there in high school. But it was still him. Steven gave a small exhale. Can we talk? Just for a minute. My first instinct was to say no. My second instinct was to prove I wasn't scared anymore. Sure, I said, standing. We stepped into one of the empty meeting rooms. The door clicked shut behind us, and for a second the silence felt heavy, like the air before a storm. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't know you worked here. I gave a small, humorless smile. Didn't know you were going to be my boss. He winced slightly at that. I'm not directly over you, he clarified quickly. Different reporting chain. I just oversee the department. That shouldn't have made me feel relieved, but it did. Another beat of silence. Then he said it. I was an asshole to you. The bluntness caught me off guard. I blinked. Yeah, you were. No point sugarcoating it. He nodded slowly, like he deserved that. I've thought about that. A lot. That was not something I ever expected to hear from him. In high school, Steven thrived on being untouchable. Star athlete. Teachers loved him. Girls followed him around like satellites. He didn't apologize for anything. So hearing this version of him, it threw me. I was angry back then. He continued, staring at the table instead of me. At a lot of things. Doesn't excuse it. But I need you to know, I'm not that person anymore. I folded my arms, not defensively, just grounding myself. People say that. I replied carefully. He finally looked at me directly. And for the first time ever, I didn't see arrogance in his eyes. I saw something closer to regret. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just didn't want the first time we talked in 8 years to be that. I studied him. He looked steady, controlled, but there was tension in his jaw like he wasn't as unaffected as he pretended. Why now? I asked. His brow furrowed slightly. What do you mean? You could have ignored it. Pretended we didn't know each other. Why bring it up? He hesitated. Then he said quietly, because you didn't deserve any of it. Something in my chest shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something. In high school, no one ever said that. No one stood up for me. No one acknowledged it was wrong. And here he was, saying it like it mattered. I swallowed. Well, I said, keeping my tone neutral, I'm not 17 anymore. I can see that. The words came out softer than expected. My stomach tightened. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. A faint, almost embarrassed smile touched his mouth. You look different. More confident. That was the first compliment Steven had ever given me. and it unsettled me more than any insult ever had. People change, I said. Yeah, he replied quietly. They do. There was a pause. Not awkward exactly, just loaded. Finally, I stepped back. Look, we're co-workers now. I'm here to do my job. That's it. Of course, he said immediately. Professional mask sliding back into place. That's all this is. But the way he held my gaze for a second too long made my pulse spike. I moved toward the door. As my hand reached the handle, he spoke again. Paul. I glanced back. If I ever cross a line, he said, voice steady but serious, you call me on it. I mean that. I nodded once. Then I walked out. The rest of the day felt strange. Every time I passed his office, glass walls, unfortunately, I could feel his presence. Not watching exactly, just there. At one point, I looked up from my desk and caught him already looking at me. He didn't look away immediately. Neither did I. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach twist in a completely different way than fear. Stephen didn't look at me like he used to. He didn't look at me like prey. He looked at me like he was trying to understand me. And somehow, that was more dangerous. Because hatred is simple. But whatever this was, it felt complicated. And it was only our first day. I told myself I didn't care. That was the lie I repeated every morning that week while walking past Stephen's office. I didn't care that he was here. I didn't care that he apologized. And I definitely didn't care that I kept noticing things about him I hadn't before. Like how he rolled up his sleeves when he was focused. Or how his voice shifted slightly when he talked one-on-one with someone. Less corporate, more human. It was unsettling. Because the Stephen I knew was loud, aggressive, always performing for an audience. This version was quieter. And somehow that made him harder to predict. By Wednesday, the office had mostly adjusted to the new boss energy. People either liked him or were trying to impress him. I stayed neutral, professional, minimal interaction, until the printer jammed. Of course it did. I was crouched down in front of it, trying to yank out a mangled sheet of paper while muttering under my breath. Still fighting battles you can't win? I froze. That voice. I stood slowly and turned. Stephen was leaning against the wall a few feet away, arms crossed. But there was no mockery in his expression. Just something almost amused. You'd think technology would have evolved past this. I replied evenly. He stepped closer. Mind if I? I hesitated. 8 years ago, I would have stepped back automatically. Now I just moved aside without looking away from him. He crouched down next to the printer, shoulders brushing mine for half a second. The contact shouldn't have meant anything. But my body reacted like it did. I shifted slightly, annoyed at myself. He reached inside the tray and carefully pulled out the crumpled paper in one smooth motion. There, he said, standing. You were pulling it the wrong way. I raised an eyebrow. That's not a metaphor, right? For a split second, he looked caught off guard. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. The laugh wasn't harsh like before. It was quieter, warmer. No, he said. Just printer advice. I nodded slowly. Good to know. We stood there for a beat longer than necessary. The office noise buzzed around us, but it felt like the air between us had shifted again, charged, but not hostile. I meant what I said the other day, he added quietly. About? I asked, calling me out if I cross a line. I studied him. You really think I'd hesitate? He held my gaze. No, I don't anymore. That hit harder than I expected. Because in high school, I did hesitate. I avoided. I stayed quiet. And he knew it. Something passed between us. Not guilt exactly, not forgiveness either. Awareness. Before I could respond, someone called his name from across the room. He stepped back slightly. I'll see you around, Paul. Yeah, I replied. But I felt his eyes on me as he walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Which was ridiculous. He apologized. He fixed a printer. That was it. So why did my brain keep replaying the way he laughed at my joke? Why did I notice that he didn't touch me again after that accidental brush of shoulders? Why did I keep wondering what had actually changed him? By Friday, I was exhausted from overthinking. The week ended with a small team happy hour. Nothing big, just drinks at a bar 2 blocks from the office. I almost didn't go, but I refused to let him dictate my comfort level. So I went. The place was dimly lit, loud enough to blur conversations into background noise. I grabbed a beer and stuck close to 2 coworkers from my team. Stephen showed up about 20 minutes later. Of course he did. He wasn't overdressed or trying too hard. Just dark jeans and a simple black button-down. He blended in easily. Too easily. People gravitated toward him. He listened more than he talked. asked questions, remembered names. That was new. At one point, I caught him looking at me again from across the room. Not casually, intentionally. I held his gaze this time. Didn't look away. He tilted his head slightly, like a silent acknowledgement. Then someone interrupted him. I told myself not to read into it. An hour later, I was at the bar ordering another drink when a body slid into the space beside me. You always stare that intensely, Stephen said quietly. Or is that just for me? I didn't turn immediately. Confident assumption, I replied. He leaned his forearms against the bar. Close, but not touching. You're not subtle. Neither are you. He glanced at me then. There it was again, that different look. Not dominance. Not cruelty. Something else. You hate me, he said plainly. It wasn't defensive, just observational. I took a slow sip of my drink. I used to. And now? That question felt heavier than it should have. I don't know you anymore, I said honestly. So I don't know what I feel. He nodded slightly, like that was fair. I deserve that. I studied his profile in the low light. Why did you really bully me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. He went still. For a long second, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he exhaled slowly. I was scared, he said. Of what? I asked. His jaw tightened. Of being seen. The words landed between us. I frowned slightly. Seen how? He hesitated. And for the first time since high school, Stephen looked unsure. Like he was standing on the edge of something. Like you, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. The noise of the bar faded into background static. What? I asked, barely above a whisper. He finally turned fully toward me. I didn't hate you because you were different, he said. I hated that you weren't pretending. My pulse hammered in my ears. That's not. I started, but he shook his head. I didn't know how to deal with it back then, he continued. It was easier to make you the target than to look at myself. The implication hung heavy in the air. You're saying, I swallowed. You bullied me because you thought you were. He didn't let me finish. I'm saying I was confused. Angry. And you were the only person who made me feel exposed. Exposed. The word echoed. I stared at him. Stephen, golden boy. Untouchable. Cruel. Felt exposed by me? That didn't fit the narrative I'd carried for years. Why tell me this now? I asked. Because you deserve the truth. His eyes held mine steadily. And because I'm done pretending. The air between us shifted again. Different now. He wasn't smirking. Wasn't posturing. He looked vulnerable. And that scared me more than anything. Because hatred is simple. But this felt like standing at the edge of something neither of us fully understood. And I had no idea if stepping forward would heal old wounds. Or reopen them completely. I should have walked away. That would have been the smart move. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was, standing too close to the guy who used to make my life miserable, now confessing something that rewrote my entire understanding of the past. You're done pretending, I repeated slowly. Stephen nodded once. I've been done for a while. And what does that mean exactly? I asked. He held my gaze. No smirk. No deflection. It means I'm not straight. The words didn't shock me as much as I expected. Maybe because part of me had already put it together. Or maybe because I could see how hard it was for him to say it. And in high school, I pressed. I was terrified, he admitted. My dad would have killed me. My friends would have dropped me. So I overcompensated. With me. He didn't look away. With you. I let out a slow breath. For years, I thought I was weak back then. But hearing this, it reframed everything. You know that doesn't undo it, I said quietly. I know, he replied immediately. I'm not asking for that. We stood there, noise swirling around us, drinks clinking, co-workers laughing somewhere behind me. But it felt like we were in our own isolated space. You ever think about how different it could have been? He asked suddenly. What? I frowned. If I hadn't been a coward. The vulnerability in his voice hit somewhere deep in my chest. High school was hell for me, I said honestly. His jaw flexed. I know. You don't, I corrected. You know your part in it. You don't know what came after. The therapy. The panic attacks. The way I still flinch when someone raises their voice. His face changed. Not defensive. Not guilty. Angry. But not at me. At myself, he clarified quietly. I was a kid trying to survive my own head. And I made you collateral damage. That word sat heavy. Collateral damage. I studied him. You've thought about this a lot. Every year since graduation, he said. That wasn't what I expected. Why didn't you ever reach out? I asked. He gave a small, almost humorless laugh. What was I supposed to say? Hey, Sorry I made your life hell because I couldn't admit I wanted to kiss you. The bluntness knocked the air from my lungs. My pulse spiked. You wanted to. I don't know what I wanted, he cut in. I just know you made me feel things I didn't have language for back then. The space between us shrank without either of us moving. I hated how confident you were in who you were, he continued. Even when people tried to tear you down. I almost laughed at that. Confident. I echoed. You never pretended, he insisted. Even when it cost you. He wasn't wrong. But hearing it from him felt surreal. A silence stretched. Then I asked the question I probably shouldn't have. And now? He didn't hesitate this time. Now I think about what would have happened if I'd just been honest. The tension between us thickened. This wasn't high school anymore. We weren't kids. We were two grown men standing inches apart in a crowded bar, digging into old wounds and something dangerously new. Stephen, I said carefully, this can't just turn into some redemption fantasy. It's not, he replied immediately. I'm not expecting anything from you. Then what are you doing? I challenged. His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth before lifting again, trying not to make the same mistake twice. My stomach flipped. That sounds a lot like expecting something. He shook his head. It sounds like being honest. The bartender called last round. The spell cracked slightly as people shifted around us. I should go, I said. He nodded slowly. Yeah, but neither of us moved. Finally, I stepped back. This doesn't change that you're my boss, I added. I know, and I'm not interested in being some secret, I said firmly. His expression sharpened. You wouldn't be. I studied him carefully. Prove it. The words slipped out before I could filter them. His eyes darkened slightly, not in a predatory way, but in something steadier. I don't hide anymore, he said. If I wanted something, I'd say it. And do you? I asked. The question hung between us like a live wire. Stephen stepped closer, not touching, just enough that I could feel the warmth of him. Yes, he said quietly. My heart hammered. You don't get to just decide that, I said, even though my voice had softened. I'm not deciding for you, he replied. I'm telling you where I stand. I searched his face for manipulation, for ego, for the old version of him. I didn't see it. What I saw was a man trying, maybe clumsily, to do better. And that complicated everything. I'm not the kid you used to corner, I reminded him. I know, he said, and I don't forgive easily. You shouldn't. A beat. Then he added, softer. But I'd like the chance to earn it. My chest tightened. Earn what? Your trust. The simplicity of it disarmed me. No grand declarations. No pressure. Just that. I looked at him for a long moment. You hurt me, I said. I know. And part of me still wants to hate you. That's fair. But another part of me, I hesitated. He waited. Wants to believe you. The honesty in my own voice surprised me. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Then let me show you, he said. I exhaled slowly. This isn't going to be easy. I don't expect it to be. And if you screw up, I won't, he said firmly. I raised an eyebrow. He corrected himself immediately. I'll try not to. That earned the smallest smile from me. Progress. Start with coffee, I said finally. He blinked slightly. Coffee. Public place. Neutral ground. No office. No bar. A slow, genuine smile appeared on his face. No ego. No arrogance. Yeah, he said. I can do coffee. And Stephen? Yeah. If this feels like some unresolved high school fantasy at any point, I'm walking. He nodded without hesitation. Understood. I stepped away first this time. And as I walked out of the bar into the cool night air, my heart was racing for an entirely different reason than it had on Monday. Because hatred is simple. But forgiveness? Forgiveness is intimate. And I had just agreed to see where this could go. The problem was, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what that actually meant. I almost canceled. Saturday morning, 9:12 a.m., I was standing outside a coffee shop 2 neighborhoods away from both the office and my apartment, wondering what the hell I was doing. It felt ridiculous. He bullied you for 4 years. But it also felt unfinished. The door opened behind me. Hey. I didn't have to turn around to know it was him. Stephen sounded different outside of work and without the low hum of a bar around us. Softer. Less guarded. I turned. He wasn't dressed like my boss. Just a gray hoodie, dark jeans. Casual. Human. You're early, I said. So are you. We both hesitated for half a second. That awkward first date energy neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I'll get it, he said, stepping toward the counter. You don't owe me caffeine, I replied. He glanced back. Let me. It wasn't pushy, just steady. I let him. We ordered, found a small table by the window. Neutral ground, like I'd insisted. For a few seconds, we just sat there. It was strange seeing him in daylight like this. No office tension. No alcohol loosening words. Just two men with history. So, I said, wrapping my hands around the cup, when did you figure it out? He didn't pretend not to understand. College, he replied. Freshman year. I raised an eyebrow. That fast. He gave a faint smile. Turns out when you're not surrounded by people who expect you to be someone else, it's easier to think. Fair. Did you come out then? He shook his head. No. Took me another 2 years. And your dad? A muscle jumped in his jaw. Hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. The bluntness of that hit harder than I expected. Stephen, it's fine, he cut in gently. I knew that was the likely outcome. You don't sound fine. He looked at me directly. I am, he said quietly, because I'm not pretending anymore. There was conviction there. And something else, loneliness, maybe. You're out at work? I asked. Yes. I studied him carefully. Fully. Yes. I nodded slowly. That mattered. Silence stretched, but not uncomfortably this time. I kept replaying things, he said suddenly. From high school. Like what? The day in the locker room. My chest tightened. I hadn't thought about that moment in years, not directly. You cornered me, I said flatly. I know. You grabbed my shirt. His hands tightened slightly around his coffee cup. I know. You asked me if I liked looking at guys. His eyes closed briefly. I remember. I held his gaze. Why? His answer came without hesitation. Because I wanted to know if you'd say yes. The air left my lungs. That's twisted, I said quietly. I was twisted, he replied. There was no defense in his tone. Just fact. I thought if you admitted it, he continued, I'd feel less alone. My throat tightened unexpectedly. But instead, he added, voice rougher now, I made sure you felt alone. The honesty hurt. Because it rang true. I went home that day and cried. I said before I could stop myself. He went very still. I know you probably don't picture that part, I continued. You picture being scared, confused, whatever. But I went home and thought something was wrong with me. His jaw clenched. I'm sorry, he said. I studied him carefully. Not the words. The tone. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't self-pitying. It sounded heavy. I don't need you to punish yourself, I said finally. I just need to know you understand. I do, he replied immediately. And if I could go back. You can't, I cut in gently. He nodded. I know. Another silence. But this one felt like we'd moved through something instead of around it. Why me? I asked quietly. What do you mean? You could have fixated on anyone. Why me? He held my gaze for a long moment. Because you didn't care if people knew. I almost laughed. I cared, I said. I was terrified. But you didn't lie, he insisted. Even when they pushed. I swallowed. You think that was bravery, I said. It was exhaustion. I didn't have the energy to pretend. He shook his head slightly. It was strength. The way he said it made something warm spread low in my chest. That was new. We weren't flirting. We weren't even close to that. But the tension had shifted from volatile to something steadier. Something real. Are you seeing anyone? He asked carefully. There it was. A line crossed. No, I said honestly. You? No. A beat. Is that relevant? I added. He didn't flinch. Only if you want it to be. My pulse ticked up slightly. I'm not jumping into something because you finally figured yourself out, I said firmly. I don't expect you to. And this can't be some redemption arc for you. It's not, he said. If you walk away after today, I'll respect it. I believed him. That was the dangerous part. Because it would have been easier if I didn't. You know what scares me? I asked quietly. What? That part of me still reacts to you. His expression shifted. React how? I hesitated. Like I'm 17. He leaned back slightly, giving me space. I don't want that, he said immediately. I don't want you to feel small around me. You don't make me feel small anymore, I admitted. Then what? I held his eyes. You make me feel something. The word hung between us. His breathing slowed slightly. What kind of something? He asked softly. I exhaled through my nose. That's what I'm trying to figure out. We sat there in that quiet understanding. No rushing. No grabbing. No dramatic confession. Just two men untangling years of damage and something unexpected growing underneath it. After a while, I checked my watch. I should go. He nodded. Yeah. We both stood. Outside, the air was cool again. Thank you, he said. For what? For coming. I hesitated. Then I did something I didn't fully plan. I stepped closer. Not touching. Just close enough that he'd have to meet my eyes. This doesn't mean I trust you yet, I said. I know. But it means I'm willing to see. His throat moved as he swallowed. That's more than I deserve. I held his gaze. No, I corrected quietly. It's exactly what you deserve. And then I walked away. My heart was pounding. Not from fear this time. From possibility. Because the truth was, I didn't see the boy who bullied me anymore. I saw a man trying to do better. And the scariest part? I wanted to see what he'd do next. The next week at work felt different. Not awkward. Not tense. Just aware. We didn't mention coffee. We didn't act like anything had shifted. But something had. Monday morning, I walked into the office expecting the usual neutral nod. Instead, Stephen was already at my desk. He stepped back immediately when I approached, giving me space. Morning, he said. Morning. He handed me a folder. Quarterly review adjustments. You were right about the budget allocation. I blinked. You actually used my suggestion? Yes. No ego. No hesitation. Just yes. That shouldn't have impressed me as much as it did. You didn't have to credit me in the meeting, I said quietly. I heard you did. He held my gaze. I did have to. A beat. I don't erase people anymore. The words landed deeper than he probably realized. High school flashback. Him erasing me from conversations, from credibility, from rooms. Now this. Thank you, I said. He nodded once and walked back to his office. No lingering. No unnecessary eye contact. Just respect. And somehow that steadiness was doing more damage to my defenses than any flirting would have. Thursday evening, most of the office had cleared out. I stayed late finishing a report. Around 7:15 p.m., I heard footsteps approach. Still here, I looked up. Stephen stood in the doorway of my cubicle. Deadlines, I replied. He stepped inside, leaning lightly against the edge of the desk, not invading space. Need help? I narrowed my eyes slightly. You offering or supervising? A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. Offering. I hesitated. Old instinct said don't depend on him. New reality said he hasn't given you a reason not to. Fine, I said, sliding the laptop slightly toward him. He pulled a chair over instead of standing above me. Small detail, but I noticed. We worked quietly for a few minutes. No weird tension. No forced conversation. Just focused. At one point, our fingers brushed over the keyboard. We both paused. It wasn't dramatic. Just contact. He pulled his hand back immediately. Sorry. You don't have to apologize for existing, I said lightly. His eyes flicked to mine. Habit. That word sat heavy. We finished the report faster than expected. Thanks, I said. Anytime. He didn't move right away. Neither did I. The office was nearly empty. The lights dimmer. The city outside the windows glowing. This is usually where I'd say something stupid, he admitted quietly. I raised an eyebrow. Like how good you look when you're focused. My pulse skipped. That's not stupid, I said before I could stop myself. His eyes sharpened slightly. Careful, he murmured. Why? Because I'm trying very hard not to rush this. The honesty in that statement made my chest tighten. You think this is going somewhere? I asked. He didn't flinch. I think it could. And you're okay with that risk? He studied me carefully. I've already risked worse. My breath slowed. Stephen, I said quietly, if this turns into something, it can't be about guilt. It won't be. And it can't be about you fixing your past. It isn't. And it definitely can't be secret. His jaw firmed. It won't be. I searched his face for hesitation. There wasn't any. Why are you so sure? I asked. Because I don't want you in the shadows, he replied. That did something to me. Something soft. Something dangerous. I stood slowly. He stood too. The air shifted. We were closer now, not touching, but close enough that I could see the faint scar on his chin I never noticed in high school. You're not 17, he said quietly. No. And neither am I. No. Silence. Charged, but not unstable. I'm not afraid of you, I said finally. His expression flickered. Something like relief mixed with something heavier. Good, he said. I'm afraid of wanting you, I added. That landed. His breathing changed slightly. Paul. Because wanting you means trusting you. I continued. And that's not easy. I know. And if you hurt me again, I won't, he said, firmer this time. You don't get to promise that. He caught himself, exhaling slowly. You're right. I don't. A beat. But I can promise I'll never treat you like you're less than me again. The words were simple, but they mattered, more than he probably understood. "Stephen," I said quietly, "what do you want?" No games. No deflection. He stepped closer, slowly, giving me every chance to step back. I didn't. "You," he said. Not desperate. Not possessive. Just clear. My heart hammered so loud I was sure he could hear it. "For what?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "To see where this goes," he replied. "To take you to dinner. To learn who you are now instead of who I was afraid of back then." The vulnerability in that cracked something open in me. "Dinner," I repeated. He nodded once. "Public. Your choice." A faint smile tugged at my mouth. "You're really sticking to the neutral ground thing. You set the rule." I hesitated for one more second. Then, "Tomorrow," I said. His eyes darkened slightly. Not predatory, just focused. "Tomorrow," he echoed. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. And somehow that restraint made it feel bigger. Because this wasn't about impulse. It was about intention. As I grabbed my bag and headed toward the elevator, he walked beside me. Not crowding, not claiming. Just present. And as the elevator doors closed, our shoulders brushed. Neither of us pulled away this time. The silence inside that small space felt electric. Not because of who we used to be, but because of who we were choosing to become. And for the first time since he walked into that conference room, I wasn't thinking about the past. I was thinking about tomorrow. I spent all of Friday pretending I wasn't thinking about Friday night. It didn't work. Dinner felt bigger than it should have. It wasn't just food. It wasn't just a date. It was a line. And once crossed, there'd be no going back to neutral co-workers with history. I picked the place, a quiet Italian spot about 15 minutes outside downtown. Dim lighting, not trendy, not romantic on purpose. Safe. He was already there when I arrived. Of course he was. Stephen stood when he saw me. Not exaggerated. Just respectful. "You look," he started, then stopped himself. I raised an eyebrow. He smirked faintly. "Good. You look good." I felt heat creep up my neck. "Careful," I echoed from the night before. He huffed a soft laugh. "Right. Slow." We sat. For the first 10 minutes, it felt almost normal. Work talk. Light teasing. Neutral topics. Then it shifted. "Can I ask you something?" he said, setting his glass down. "You usually do." He nodded once. "Why didn't you hate me more?" "That wasn't what I expected." "What makes you think I didn't?" I replied. He held my gaze. "You're here." "Fair." I exhaled slowly. "Because hating you took too much energy," I admitted. "I hated what you did. But I didn't want you living rent-free in my head forever." His jaw tightened slightly. "I don't deserve that kind of grace." "It's not grace," I said. "It's self-preservation." He studied me carefully. "You've changed," he murmured. "So have you." He nodded once. "I had my first boyfriend at 21, he said suddenly. The abrupt honesty caught me off guard. "Okay," I said cautiously. "He didn't know about you," Stephen added. "But I did." My pulse ticked up. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said quietly, "every time I felt scared to hold his hand in public, I thought about how you never pretended." My throat tightened. "You're giving me way too much credit," I said. "No," he replied. "I'm finally giving you the right amount." Silence fell between us again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like we were building something brick by brick instead of trying to leap across the gap. "Are you scared now?" I asked softly. "Of you," he clarified. "Yes." He didn't hesitate. "Yes." The honesty hit me square in the chest. "Why?" "Because you could walk away," he said, "and I'd have no right to stop you." That wasn't fear of rejection. That was respect. I leaned back slightly. "Stephen, if this happens, it can't be you chasing redemption." "It's not. And it can't be me trying to rewrite high school." "It's not that either." "Then what is it?" He held my gaze steadily. "It's me liking who you are now, and wishing I'd had the courage to know you then." There was no ego in it. No bravado. Just truth. I swallowed. "And if I tell you I'm attracted to you?" I asked quietly. His breathing shifted. "I tell you I've been trying very hard not to assume that." "And if I am?" I pressed. His eyes darkened slightly. Not hungry, not predatory, just focused. "Then I'd ask what you want to do about it." The air felt heavier. Warmer. "I don't move fast," I said. "I don't want fast. I don't do secret. I won't hide you. I don't tolerate disrespect. You won't get it." Each answer came steady. Immediate. No hesitation. And that steadiness did something dangerous to my walls. "Okay," I said finally. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Okay." I nodded once. "I'm attracted to you." There it was. Out loud. No teenage shame. No locker room fear. Just truth. Stephen exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Thank you, he said quietly. I frowned slightly. For what? For not making me guess. There was something in his response. No pride. No victory. Just gratitude. And it made my chest tighten. We finished dinner slower than necessary. When we stepped outside, the night air felt cooler than expected. We stood there for a moment, neither of us quite sure what came next. This is usually where people kiss, he said lightly. I huffed a small laugh. Is that what you want? He didn't move closer. I want what you're comfortable with. The control in that answer made my stomach flip. I stepped toward him first this time. Just one step. He didn't close the distance. Didn't assume. Didn't reach. I studied his face up close, really studied it. There was no high school smirk. No dominance. Just anticipation. Are you going to overthink this? He asked softly. Yes, I admitted. He smiled slightly. Fair. I exhaled once. Then I closed the distance. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't heated. It wasn't desperate. It was careful, tentative. His hand hovered near my waist, but didn't settle until I leaned in slightly more. Only then did he touch me. Gentle. Like I was something fragile he refused to mishandle. And that undid me more than anything. When we pulled back, neither of us spoke for a second. That wasn't about guilt, I said quietly. No, he agreed. That wasn't about high school. No, that was about now. Yes. The certainty in his voice made my heart pound. I stepped back slightly, needing air. Okay, I said again. He studied me carefully. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. A small smile tugged at his mouth. I've wanted to do that since Monday. I rolled my eyes lightly. Since Monday. Since you looked at me like you weren't afraid. That hit deeper than I expected. I'm not afraid of you, I reminded him. He stepped closer again, not trapping, just near. Good, he murmured. Because the truth was, I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of him. What scared me was how right that kiss felt. And how much I wanted to see what came next. I didn't invite him up. That was intentional. Not because I didn't want to, but because I did. Too much. I'm going home, I said, hands in my pockets, trying to steady my breathing. Good, Stephen replied. You should. I narrowed my eyes slightly. That wasn't what I meant. A faint smile touched his mouth. I know. We stood there another second, neither of us quite ready to break the moment. I'll text you, he added. Okay. No pressure. No move to follow me. Just steady. And somehow that made it harder to walk away. The next few weeks unfolded carefully. We didn't announce anything at work, but we didn't hide it either. We kept it professional in the office. Minimal contact, no lingering looks. Outside of work, though, it built slowly. Dinner turned into late-night walks. Walks turned into him coming over, staying on the couch the first time. Not because we were pretending, because we were pacing. The second time he stayed over, we ended up sitting on my balcony past midnight. You ever think about how weird this is? I asked. All the time, he replied. High school us would not believe this. He huffed a quiet laugh. High school me would probably panic. High school you would probably shove me into a locker, I teased lightly. His expression shifted. Not offended. Not defensive. Just thoughtful. I can't erase that, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to. He turned toward me fully. What are you asking for? Honesty seemed to be the only language we were using now. Consistency, I said. No disappearing. No backtracking. You won't get that. And if things get complicated at work, they probably will. Then we deal with it. Together. That word lingered between us. Together. It felt significant. He reached for my hand slowly, giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. His fingers laced through mine. Simple. Grounded. Not rushed. Can I ask you something? He said softly. You're on a roll tonight. He squeezed my hand lightly. Do you ever think you're giving me too much credit? I frowned. What do you mean? For changing. For growing. I studied him carefully. No, I said finally. Because I'm not trusting words. I'm trusting patterns. His expression softened slightly. And if I mess up? You will, I replied honestly. He blinked. Everyone does. The difference is what you do after. He leaned closer slightly, forehead almost touching mine. I don't want to be the guy who hurt you, he said. Then don't be, I answered simply. The kiss that followed wasn't tentative this time. It wasn't frantic either. It was deeper, intentional. His hand slid to my waist, steady. Mine moved to his jaw. No hesitation. No ghosts from high school. Just now. When we finally pulled back, His breathing was heavier. "So this is real," he murmured. "Yes. And you're not running." "No." A beat. "I should tell you something," he added quietly. I stiffened slightly. "What?" "I've never dated someone who knew me before I came out." I blinked. "Oh, you see everything," he continued. "The good and the bad. That scares you." "Yes." I appreciated the honesty. "It should," I said softly. "It scares me too." He searched my face. "Why?" "Because you knew me when I was at my most vulnerable. And, and if this goes wrong, it'll hit deeper." Silence stretched. Then he did something that completely undid me. He pressed his forehead to mine and whispered, "Then let's not let it go wrong." Not a promise, not a guarantee, just a choice. The first time we slept in the same bed, it wasn't explosive. It was quiet. We lay there facing each other in the dark. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Yes." "You're tense." "Just thinking." "About." "Trust." He didn't flinch. "That's fair." I traced a finger lightly along his collarbone. Slow, deliberate. "This feels different than high school," I said quietly. "Good," he replied. No power imbalance. No fear. His hand settled gently at my hip. "Never again," he said. And I believed him. Because the boy who cornered me needed control. The man in my bed was giving it up willingly. When he kissed me that night, it wasn't about reclaiming anything. It was about building something new. No urgency. No conquest. Just two people choosing each other. And somewhere in the middle of that slow, careful unraveling, I realized something. I didn't see my former bully anymore. I saw the man who stayed. The man who listened. The man who waited. And maybe that's what healing actually looks like. Not erasing the past, but refusing to repeat it. A month later, someone at work noticed. Not dramatically, just a comment. "You and Steven seem close." I didn't freeze. Didn't panic. I just smiled slightly. "We are." No hiding. No shame. Later that evening, when I told him about it, he looked at me carefully. "You didn't deflect?" "No." "And you're okay with that?" "Yes." He stepped closer, hand resting lightly at the small of my back. "I won't ever ask you to shrink again," he said quietly. "You'd better not." He kissed me then, steady, confident. Not because he'd earned redemption. Not because we'd rewritten history. But because we'd chosen something healthier. Stronger. Real. And the strangest part? If you'd told 17-year-old me that one day I'd fall for the guy who made my life hell, I would have laughed. But I would have been wrong. Because sometimes growth isn't about who hurt you. It's about who they decide to become after. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of loving him. It wasn't some dramatic moment that proved this was real. It wasn't a grand gesture, or a jealous outburst, or some cinematic confession in the rain. It was a Tuesday, a boring, ordinary Tuesday. And that's how I knew. We were at work, finishing up a department presentation. Stress was high, deadlines tight, people snapping at each other over minor edits. Old Steven, high school Steven, would have thrived in that environment. Dominated it. Used it. But this Steven? He handled it differently. When one of the analysts pushed back aggressively on a budget call, I saw the flash in his eyes, that instinct to control. And then I saw him stop himself. He leaned back instead. "Walk me through your reasoning," he said calmly. Not dismissive. Not condescending. Curious. The room shifted, and I realized something hit me right in the chest. He wasn't just different with me. He was different. Period. After the meeting, I was gathering my things when he approached. "You looked like you were about to jump in," he said lightly. I admitted. "You handled it better than I would have." He studied me for a second. "That used to be me," he said quietly. "All ego. No listening." "Yeah," I said, half smiling. "I remember." He didn't flinch. "I'm glad you do," he replied. And that was it. No defensiveness. No guilt spiral. Just acknowledgement. That's when it really sank in. He wasn't trying to convince me he'd changed. He was just living it. That night, he came over. No big plans. Just takeout and a movie neither of us really watched. Halfway through, I muted the TV. "What?" he asked, looking over. I studied him for a long moment. "You're not that guy anymore." His expression softened slightly. "I'm trying not to be." "No," I said gently. "You're not." He didn't speak right away. "Does that help?" he asked quietly. "Yes." Silence settled between us. Not heavy, just full. "There's something I need to say," I added. His shoulders straightened slightly, bracing. "I don't love you because you hurt me," I said carefully. "And I don't love you because you changed." His eyes searched mine. "I love you because you stay." There it was. Out loud. Love. The word didn't feel rushed. Or impulsive. Or dramatic. It felt earned. His breath caught slightly. Paul. You don't have to say it back yet, I added quickly. I just needed you to know. He moved closer. Slowly. Like he always did. I do, he said. My heart stuttered. I do love you. It wasn't loud. Or overwhelming. It was steady. Certain. And it's not because I'm trying to fix the past, he continued. It's because you make me want to be better in the present. That broke something open in me. Not in a painful way. In a healing way. He kissed me then. Not urgent. Not hungry. Just grounding. And in that moment, I realized something that would have terrified the old version of me. I wasn't loving my former bully. I was loving the man who chose growth over ego. Accountability over pride. Us over fear. 3 months later, we told HR. Not because we had to. Because we wanted to. Transparency. No shadows. It wasn't dramatic. Just paperwork and raised eyebrows. And, as long as it doesn't affect reporting structure. It didn't. Because we'd already thought about that. Already handled it. Already chosen maturity. And when word spread quietly through the office, we didn't flinch. We didn't hide. We just kept showing up. Together. Sometimes, late at night, when he's half asleep beside me, I think about 17-year-old Paul. The kid who felt small. Cornered. Alone. I wish I could tell him this part. That one day, the boy who made him feel invisible would look at him like he was the only thing in the room. That one day, apologies would turn into effort. Effort into trust. Trust into something deeper. But I also know something else now. This story isn't romantic because he used to hurt me. It's meaningful because he refused to stay that person. People don't deserve forgiveness automatically. They earn it. And he did. Not with words. With consistency. And maybe that's what love really is. Not grand gestures. Not dramatic redemption arcs. Just choosing, every day, not to be who you were when you didn't know better. He chose that. And I chose him. And somehow, that's the part that still feels unbelievable. But this time, not in a painful way. In a grateful one.